Hello and welcome. Today we are at Spectra and we have a power pack panel who's going to be talking about a very interesting topic, realizing the power of small, how small wins in a world of big. Oftentimes we're taught that there is power to largeness and magnanimity and mammothness, but the small joys actually exist in the smallest of things, and the power of small is often undermined. Today, this panel is going to be talking about the various aspects of actually looking at how small can be that exact magical ingredient that can change the way we look at the power of small in itself. From innovation to challenges, this panel is going to be discussing and talking about various aspects about their personal journeys. Both in their professional lives and their personal lives, and they're going to be alluding to a lot of this that's coming your way. Today on the panel, I have Komal Lath from Tute Consulting, Dushyant Sinha from ICCPL, Rishi Seth from Evoc, and Bisht from Blue Buzz. So, without further ado, I'm going to ask my panelists to introduce themselves and to speak a little bit about their context to the topic in itself. So, Komal, we'll start with you, and it's over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for a lovely, lovely, warm introduction, Shreya. I represent Tute. I started this baby 11 years back, and I say it's 11 years young because we yet function like a startup. It's a very, very interesting topic to begin with because most people tell you and judge the size, I think, of an agency slash company by revenues and turnover. But I think it's very interesting to just say that you can think we can start small, right? You don't need to be a certain size to be able to start. So Tute's been that journey. We started off with a public relations outfit to now pivoting into a complete IMC where we do some fantastic work. And I think in the journey of the conversation, we'll talk about it. Over to you. Back to you, Shreya.
Okay, thank you, Komal, for setting the tone, tenor, context of the conversation that you're going to take us through. Dushyant, it's over to you for your thoughts on this one.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. This is Dushyant, and I represent a company called ICCPL. So this is a 10-year-old baby. We will be completing a decade this year. We are still starting, all the celebrations to start. So we'll be completing 10 years this October. Uh, I feel that in the last 10 years, the entire concept of public relation has absolutely been changing by every year. We started with a traditional way of doing public relation, which is now moving towards online PR. We are heavily now into digital marketing as well. We're designing a lot of marketing communication. We're designing the collaterals as well. So I guess, so what I believe is that the public relation, you have the benefit of having the right insights into this sector where you deal into. For example, we are one of the leading players now in real estate of this country. So because of our PR background, we have always been to research, development, reading, knowledge. So that has actually helped us grow in terms of even when we do the online communication, when we design the marketing collaterals. So I believe this is what we have been doing in the last 10 years.
Switching gears to you, Rishi, now, and asking you a little bit about your own personal journey and, of course, the journey of Evoc and how that connects to the conversation that we're having currently.
Yes, thank you so much, Shreya, and a very warm welcome to all the viewers and listeners. I founded Evoc about 7.5 years ago with a very simple insight. I had worked in PR agencies before and I had handled marketing for a firm before. And the insight was that when it comes to solving a communications problem, a PR agency will always look at it as a PR problem, and advertising agency will always look at it as a advertising problem or a digital marketing problem to solve. And that was the insight which basically led to the forming of Evoc, because at Evoc, what we are trying to do is to solve a problem by analyzing it holistically and then choosing the appropriate tool or method or channel to solve that problem. Beyond public relations, which is in a sense, it's the bread and butter for Evoc, but we also handle some very strategic marketing assignments in terms of branding, in terms of even going to the traditional core 3 Ps of marketing, which is product and pricing. So that's something. These are some of the the extra value add assignments we've done for some of the startups. And as a young company working with largely with startups, I think we now understand the smaller domain, and we know that how we can add value both to a smaller firm as well as to a large established company.
And thank you for sharing your journey with us. Again, in context of the topic we're talking about, some really interesting insights coming up as everybody introduces. Neha, switching gears to you, tell us a little bit about yourself, the organization, and of course, in context of what we're speaking about today. It's over to you.
Sure. So, hi, a very warm welcome to everybody. I represent Bluebus here. We're only a 6-year-old company, and the whole idea also started from the intent of truly telling compelling stories. Irrespective of the size of the brand. So when we started, although it was a very very small setup, and at the beginning it was just me trying to do everything. One thought that was very clear in my head was the impact. So, which is why perhaps in the first year itself, we could create pitches that enabled us to win clients pan India, and we could sort of accelerate our growth year on year. From that perspective. So, which is why when this topic was proposed, I was very excited because it also takes me back to my school days where I'm small in size, and where everybody would speak of she's small but she will do the job, right, because of the passion and in terms of the fighting spirit that I felt. And that's something that I've always carried forward in my company also. So irrespective, even today when we talk about what this has to be done, the thought is never about, oh my god, but we're probably not that big right now. I mean, it's always about, okay, let's see how best we can do it. And from that perspective, I think we've also got recognition in last 2 years, and I think we're very 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 grateful for that.
Okay, so small truly packs a punch, and thank you again, Neha, for sharing. Now, Neha, I'm actually going to start the question and answer round with you. Can you share what have been some of the highlights of innovation that's been empowered by the power of small? And I'm going to bring this question to each one of you in context of your own journeys. So, Neha, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about the highlights of innovation that's empowered by the power of small.
Sure, thank you, Shreya. So, whenever I think of how small is small, I always remember this analogy of salt. Like it's the smallest particle, but how each recipe is incomplete without it. So, and the moment I think that, I always feel again going back to what, there is no small. It's only a perception. And just 2 days back, I was talking to a child prodigy who's only 16, who's built a smallest satellite, which now, he will work on with the experts to work on the next steps. And I was just thinking, oh my God, if a 16-year-old is doing that, then there is no small. The small is just in our minds and in our perception, because at times the smallest can do the things that we can perhaps not even imagine.
Small is just in our minds, and small is just a perception. And on that note, and how truly poignant is that to start this conversation with, Rishi, I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to ask you the same question. Some highlights of innovation in the context of power of small from your personal journey.
Yes, I think the first point that I would like to underline very, very strongly is I think beyond the public relations domain or beyond the communications domain, across industries, the best and the most profound innovations have always come from startups or from the younger, smaller firms, just because their DNA is built up of a challenger's mindset. They want to disrupt their industries, and that is how I think that is as much true for companies like Evoc and the other companies being represented here today as it is for the more popular startup ecosystem that we keep reading about. So I can share a very interesting insight about innovation which is something that we uh, uh, solved a problem for Oyo rooms. Uh, Oyo rooms we used to work with back in 2015, and one of the problems they came to us, and it was a classic PR problem that uh, on Google, a lot of reviews about their hotels were negative, and they wanted our help to address that problem. So when we dug deeper into that problem, we realized that, and it's a very common phenomenon, that unhappy customer is much more likely to write a negative review, whereas a happy customer will never give a feedback on a public platform. So that was the insight that we worked with, and we thought of figuring out a way to incentivize the happy customers. The number of happier guests and customers who were totally satisfied with Oyo properties was always much higher than the a small percentage or a small fraction of people who were unhappy. And the solution that we came up was within the Oyo app, which was used by the hotel administration or the managers. We added a feature where the guest, while at the time of checkout, they would be asked to rate their stay. So it was kind of an NPS. And then, basis the NPS, if a guest had rated us highly, we asked the Oyo team to reach out to that guest with a very polite, simple email 4 days after their stay, and ask them if they would like to uh, rate their stay and describe and comment and review their stay on popular platforms on Google. And this simple solution worked so well for them. Not only they implemented it and they saw their ratings, improve from an average of 1 to 2. Suddenly, their ratings had been, they grew to 3 or 4, or sometimes even beyond 4 out of 5. So these kind of innovations, I'm not very sure a traditional large scale PR firm could have come up with back in 2015. I think probably now it's I'm sure they would have evolved, but still this is something that we are really proud of, and it got us tremendous appreciation from the client as well. And there are many such other stories with other clients.
Right. That truly makes you think about actual innovation on the ground because you're listening, you're closely connected, etc., etc. On that note, Dushyant, I'm going to bring you in and ask you the same thing. Can you share with us highlights of the power of small on your journey?
I'll continue from where Neha actually left. Being small is just a perception. No doubt, the perception is primarily from the client side, and the perception is based on the kind of servicing, parameters which a small firm can function, wherein they believe that a bigger organization would give them a better service, right? But it's just a perception. Believe me, when I started, so let's say the way Neha said, we started from a very small setup with just one employee and one team member starting with. We have always been bootstrapped. We have never raised fund. We neither look out for raising fund. So what I believe and what I actually faced was that being small is just a perception. What are we called small for? Are we being called small because we are small in size or the number of employees which we have? Uh, you know, I absolutely negate that notion because most of my clients previously were working with one of the biggest PR agency from across the globe, right? And they chose me over those bigger brands. For example, today we service Oyo rooms, we service housing.com. So those are all billion-dollar companies, right? They could have hired anyone else. The payouts was never a problem for them. But I believe that it's the kind of convictions you have for your own service, the kind of faith which you have for your own service, and the kind of team which you have built. That is what actually creates the right perception. And believe me, every big somewhere down the line started small, right? So small is just a perception. End of the day, where you are actually rated as, when good, bad, poor is based on your services. You service 10 clients, you service 100 clients, you service 500 clients. Your each and every client should go back home happy, when he must feel that, the kind of services which was desired from the agency, he has received that. So small is absolutely a perception, nothing else. And again, I will reiterate, every big started small.
This actually reminds me of the line which says, small is big. And of course, the book that says, thinking big and small and big in context of different ideologies and different directions of thought. Komal, switching gears to you and asking you about highlights in context of the power of small, in context of your journey. You're on mute. If you can just go on mute.
Sorry, I was saying, I was listening to everybody's journeys, and it's very, very interesting because I think all of us in the context of small could relate to, it's a perception issue for sure. And thanks, Neha, for bringing that in. Whoever coined that line, "Bada hai to behtar hai," I think needs to do a rethink, right? I think that entire ideology, which once was stagnated, is stagnant for sure. Who said that? Why does a big person or a big agency have the power vested in them to think big? That's why there's a line called childlike curiosity, right? Because they can think innocently, they can think big. And I think all of us have built our teams to be very multifaceted in a way. I'll give you some innovations that we've done very interestingly. So back in the day, when we started, I think one of our first clients was a brand called SPECTRA. We had a 30-minute conversation towards the end, and I think my agency was 2 months old. Satish was his name, Satish Pai, as we referred to him. He came, he said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand PR, but I do know that what you're saying makes sense for my brand. Here are my 12 PDCs." And I'm like, holy cow, this seems good. This means something interesting is happening in there. We're shaking up a little, but it's too premature to say it. Cut to, I think, a year down, we realized there is an ample opportunity in going digital. Coming from big agencies myself, same presentation, save as, just change the name. It'll be the same. We said, let's do something different. And we almost were the first ones to start the influencer marketing conundrum with paying these people. And look at us today. We're one of the leading sort of IMCs who sit on the power of creating very, very beautiful digital content via the power of influencers. So I think I echo everybody's thoughts that it's not about the size or the perception. I think the pandemic was a great revealer. We didn't have 5 offices. We didn't need to. Back then itself, we were a plug and play model. We operate in 210 cities, today 30 countries, very beautifully. And for us, it was just transitioning, saying, hey, you're a phone call away. I don't need to have you physically sit in a space. I'll save that money for my client or teams and empower them rather. So I think the thought that matters, and by no one's power is that thought vested in a big person. I think it resides in all of us. It's just how we amplify it and how we grow in further. So innovation helps. And I think my last and most powerful example that we've sort of worked on was the Kamla Mills fire. Nobody thought and nobody would think that a small agency, a 3-member team at that time, would be able to roll our sleeves and manage a crisis of that size. And I think if the thought and the clarity of thought is there, it's all possible. So I think the impossible is for the word. I think I'd like to challenge every time somebody tells me no, I'll be like, no, I swear to you, my team can do it.
I mean, that's the total spirit, right? Because you're so right. It's people at the end of the day, and people are not big or small. People are people. And whatever the size of your organization, it's still a people connection that is the heart and soul of this business. And of course, when you look at it, it's the impact that you can create, not really anything else that really matters. So on that note, now, again, I'm going to start with you, Komal, and I'm going to come to the next question, which is, you all spoke about it in a little bit of the intros, but what do you think is the true advantage of starting small? And what does that mean in terms of both the business and the market landscape?
It's a lovely question, Shreya. So I think big agency sizes help you have more people suited up and looking in front of a window or a table, which is great because the quantum of work can be spread out. But I think the power of small gives you agility like no one else. So we're in the landscape where you're working with insurgent brands, where, when I started my career, the bosses then said, today's news is tomorrow's Bhelpuri. And I'd like, okay, that makes sense. But I think today the thing is what was relevant 5 minutes back may not be relevant an hour later. You're literally competing with something that's trending. You're using words in a very different landscape. So I think going back by that adage, it's very, very critical to be agile. And I think the nimble footedness of being small is beautiful. Decision making, how empowered your teams feel when you leave it on them. And your clients today, from a landscape perspective, are okay for us to falter together because you're partners. You're not an agency to them anymore. And I'd say pick your partners well, because then you're actually journeying and you're trekking well with it. You're allowed to make mistakes. When did we look at achieving perfection? Why are we not looking at achieving a common goal? And I think those little thoughts that matter make a huge difference to your overall personality as well as what you bring to the table.
Oh my
I
God,
can go on and on, but I think this is good.
Yeah. But I think there's some really exciting things that you brought into the context there. And what really stood for me was the fact that you can fail and you can fail together and learn together. And, that's beautiful, because we should stop chasing perfection, the perception of perfection in everything that we choose to achieve. Dushyant, coming to you with the same question, let me repeat that a little bit for you. What do you think is the advantage of starting small, and what does that mean in terms of the business and market landscape? Dushyant, if you can unmute yourself and then share. Yes.
Yes. So sorry. So I was saying starting young and not small. The benefits which I personally felt was that I could actually learn from the mistakes of the other bigger agencies in size. When, for example, way back in 2013 itself, we would be the first agency to start a research team in-house. Because I actually felt the need. And I have been on both the sides. I have been on the client side as well before I ventured out. So I anyway was always felt that, normally every agency follows a very traditional way of doing PR, where the basic thing of ideation was always lacking. And the issue behind the lack of ideation was that no one used to read actually. Everyone was absolutely working under pressure of getting coverages, meeting the deadlines, 30-day documents submitted. So no one actually had that kind of inclination to go back home, study, come back with some kind of new things to discuss. So way back in 2013, we developed an in-house content and research team. So today, every release of ours is being developed in-house, is being researched in-house. We also have recently started a lot of media mapping research centers, wherein we do surveys and reports on what kind of trends are being followed in media, and we have a dedicated separate team which is not into client servicing, which is not into media relations. They're dedicatedly working over research only. This is so. I couldn't have done that if I would have actually been just following the bigger companies, right? So starting young or small was always, I always had the benefit of, looking at the lacunas of other agencies, and then you can actually implement new ideas. So these are the couple of benefits. When you are much smaller, you have a lot of time to spend on your, the cosmetic aspect of an agency, rather than just following the mill process.
Again, some great insights on what the leverage is that comes with actually being agile, being small. I hear agility a lot being spoken about, and that actually connects this thread beautifully. So now, Neha, I'm going to switch gears to you and come to you and ask you, in the context of the same thing, what was it for you? What was the advantage of starting small, and what did that mean for your market and landscape that you were catering to?
Sure, thank you, Shreya. So I think I'd like to go to the basics, in terms of for any agency to do the work that they promise to deliver results, it always goes back to the team. And that's what I realized, because again, I've also worked with larger agencies, and now coming back and to sort of start my own, the basic thought was that I wanted this to be boutique. And the main reason behind that was because your team, you can keep it together, and each member, you can ensure that resonates with the same belief system. And I feel somehow when that is taken care of, then you're anyways changing the landscape, because you're again creating campaigns which are memorable. There are compelling stories to tell, and everybody is talking about you. So, in a world of big, there is small you, but it is there. And I think, just 3 days back, there was an award announcement where our name was there. And, I was looking at all the other brands, and they were all large agencies. And we were the only one who was 6 years old in the business, and same size logo, everything. And it was just so endearing to see that, that is perhaps the power that we have, which again, how Dushyant covered that when you're a large setup, it becomes very difficult, because there are certain ideas that we truly believe in. And when you have the clients on your side, it becomes easy to see them fly. And if you fail, you fail, but it's the same. But my darling, what if you fly? And if you do, you're there. So, and that's perhaps is something that we truly believe in doing. And for that, for us, it is very, very, very important that each team member understands that very well. So, even learning from the pandemic, because it was all very sudden, and everybody had to sort of take certain calls. For us, again, because of that, uh, uh, the workload, of course, increased, because everyone suddenly learned the power of digital, even the ones who were contemplating before. And because of that, the team did not, the backbone did not break. And even the last 1.5 years have been the most joyful period for all of us, during the pandemic, and it still continues.
Wow, okay, that's really exciting to hear, because I think that also makes us point to the future very interesting terms. While these stories are amazing, we also know that there's a lot of grit, gumption, and hard work that goes into the back end. And not everything is hunky dory and amazing at all times. So, my next question, and again, Neha, I'll start with you. What are some of the teething issues, navigating challenges that showed up, and how can actually you have that belief system to be able to manage them? Because you spoke about it, I'm sort of asking you about the belief system, because I think that's what cracks the code, really. So tell us a little bit about your challenges, the teething issues, some of the grunge work that needed to be done.
So, when you start, it's like you just leave everything with this entire dream of becoming an entrepreneur, and you have this passion that I'm going to, sort of do this and do that. And nobody tells you that, when you do, then you'll have to don many hats at the same time. And for me, that was, like a setback. And I was like, okay, so I have to now become a business person, and not just be a PR expert. And because I knew I was really good at my job, and now here I had to sort of learn everything from, and being a small setup, accounting to finance to, doing new business development, doing execution. You had to do everything by yourself. So I think that was a challenging period, but I think it was also a great learning curve, because perhaps what I learned in that short span of time, I would have not otherwise. And over a period of time, in terms of the challenges, perhaps, I mean, for us right now, yes, we're all working in a remote, sort of this video call mode. The personal touch, I feel, somewhere has been a major challenge, where like the cup of coffee in the evening, where you feel, okay, somebody is looking low, somebody's stressed, you want to just go have a chat. I think that somewhere is completely missing. So not a challenge. I think perhaps it's all, in terms of how with times we evolve. And we are also trying to evolve here and trying to sort of find ways of overcoming these.
Yes, on the note of overcoming challenges, Rishi, I'm going to switch gears to you, and I'm going to ask you about one, of course, the challenges and the teething issues, and the previous one where we were talking about the context around what does it mean, and what does that entail for the entire way the business plays out. So if you can share some insights. If you can go off mute, Rishi.
Sorry. So let me answer the earlier question first. And in fact, I have a lot to echo what Dushyant and Neha and Komal spoke about. And I think just to add on to the factors like we all hustle very strongly. We have a very close knit and a very cohesive team with a shared goal. We have partners. We have clients who are more like partners. I think, in addition to all that, I think one of the biggest learnings for me personally has been, as a smaller firm, I think we are far more predisposed to taking risks. Whether in terms of starting new, innovations, as Dushyant was talking about the research center. Those kind of things, in a larger agency, probably would take months and years of bureaucratic planning and then execution. Over here, the speed of decision making, and all of us would agree to that, is absolutely lightning fast. So in terms of risk taking, both internally, which is to think of new ways to improve our models, to add more value to our clients, and also risk taking with the clients. So we are far more, and because we have that culture of hustle, we all of us came from large agencies, so we know the hygiene work of PR very well. We know how to run accounts, we know how to manage clients, we know how to deliver. But I think where large agencies sometimes struggle is they don't really push the envelope very far, because at the end of the day, that culture of hustle is missing. So in our experience and in my personal experience, I think I have been far more, I would say, pushy and much more aggressive in selling some very innovative ideas to our clients. And when those ideas have worked, I think the clients have deeply appreciated those. And a testimony to that is majority of our clients, have either stayed with us for 5, 6, 7 years, or uh, I think the shortest stints we have had is probably 2 years, 3 years. So that's the kind of client retention, and all that is possible because they see that the team is really pushing hard. Basically, we're pushing everybody to go beyond their comfort zone. It's not just for internal team members, but also for clients to go beyond their comfort zone, experiment with new tactics, new ideas, new activations. So that's probably the biggest power of small that I can think of. Now to the second question of the teething troubles, I would think that just to reiterate that point, that all of us come from a very senior level positions in large firms. So in terms of running the basic show of a PR account, whether in terms of delivery, whether in terms of acquiring new clients, all of us are well versed in that. So from that point of view, there was literally not a major challenge. And to add to that, I would say that I think we've been fortunate in the sense that there haven't been any serious teething troubles for Evoc in the initial years. I think the pandemic was a crisis, but it was for the entire industry, big or small. Uh, uh, Having said that, I think the only thing that I feel we could have improved upon was to get some uh, people at the senior level who really had that that urge or the desire to really hustle through. I think finding people, let's say at the account director level or senior level, uh, who can really push hard and who can show that entrepreneurial spirit. I think that's something that I miss, but at the same time, it's not a challenge and it's not something that put us back in any way.
Right, but that's the testimony to hustle, and that also makes me think of this talent crunch. I mean, that's a challenge. I think that's common to everybody. I think, including not just the agencies, but also on the other side, I think talent is a big question mark and is a good challenge to sort of tackle in some form in the future to be able to have a healthy pipeline. Dushyant, coming to you, and no pressure, I'm watching the time a little bit, but if we can quickly gear up into rapid fire mode after this round. So I have a few more questions I want to go through. So Dushyant, share with us some of your teething troubles and challenges that you may have faced in the journey.
They talk about teething troubles. I'll tell you something like, since my childhood, I have always wanted to join army. But somehow, some of the other reasons I couldn't. So I've always believed in taking the bull by the horns. But believe me, I've been rather ICCPL. We have been very blessed that we cannot actually highlight any teething issues. No doubt, hiring the right resource for an agency starting young is a bit of a challenge, no doubt about it. Because end of the day, people do think about the infrastructure, about other things, right? But believe me, from a client side, which is actually one of the most important factor again for an agencies to grow, the first account which we cracked 10 years ago is still with us. So that actually shows that from a client perspective, we have been blessed. We have been blessed. We never had a teething issue or anything like that. But yes, I would agree with Rishi that hiring the right resource for a company which have just started young is a bit of a problem. But again, it's it resolves with time. You grow, you create a name for yourself, and these all issues are absolutely resolved.
The magic of powering through, believing in the power of positivity itself. Komal, coming to you and asking you about teething troubles, challenges that you may have, sort of gotten through to get to the space that you're in today. If you can go off mute, please.
Sorry. So I think everybody's covered most of it. So I'm just going to sort of look at it, that what are the three key challenges which we did face, and I think we all do face even currently. Hiring. Right talent is definitely something. I think the industry is not attracting the level of talent that it can. And there's ample scope to do more. Hence, have taken up a lot of teaching. It's nothing like they put out good talent in the world. There's scope for more. That I think is one of the mantras. A second, I think, is retainer sizes. I think that's as a mindset. So my third point was mindset. So hiring retainers and mindset. I think just from a fact that, because you are small, you are supposed to be giving a particular pipeline of resources. I think that you cannot measure that. And I think that's a very, very unfair mechanism that is there, but it's changing. There is hope for the world. And mindset more from an internal and external. The fact that you can have a communications company who can give you an integrated idea. Earlier, it was met with a lot of taboo because you had very fixated. These are the 6 agencies that are there on retainer. You need to talk, and everybody's in silos. I think the power of being able to talk through that by being given integration, hence training internally, is something as a challenge we are overcoming beautifully, but it takes the other side also. It takes 2 to tango. So I think in all, these 3 would be my key points.
Okay, so it takes 2 to tango. On that note, I'm going to switch to full rapid fire mode because I also have audience questions coming in and I want to pose those to you as well. This time, maybe we will start with the boys. Rishi, we'll start with you and we will come to you and ask you a little bit about one moment that you realized the power of small in. Answer in a phrase or a sentence. One moment that you can think of where you realize the power of small.
Okay. It cannot be a rapid fire. I think it needs some thinking.
Okay, so one moment when you realize the power of small. You can take time to think, but you can maybe answer in a sentence.
I think the only clear moment I can think of is the absolute focus and personalized service that only a small firm can give and is capable of. So that's the true value that a small firm can offer to even the largest client in the country.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to repeat the same question for the rapid fire for everyone, but the word associations are different. Rishi, continuing with you, I'm going to say a few words and you have to respond with the first word that comes to your mind. And the first word that I have for you is solutions are dash. Solutions are dash.
Solutions are effective.
Okay, the next one. Tools must dash. Or tools dash.
Tools must work.
Okay. Research is.
Sacrosanct.
Okay, on that note, Rishi, I don't have a hamper for this one, so no winners or losers on this one. Dushyant, coming over to you. And the first question, what was that one moment that you had where you felt truly that the power of small was working to your advantage?
Ideation. We are absolutely free to ideate, think, come out with new innovation, and come out with something which is very different from others. We
Okay,
have that freedom.
and now, amazing. And now, content. The first word that comes to your mind when I say content.
The most important aspect of any PR strategy.
Okay, bootstrapping.
Just loving it.
Okay, perceptions are.
Myth. Myth to be broken.
Okay, and the last one for you, hustle is. Hustle is.
Uh, mm, just a perception, I guess.
Okay, on that note, thank you, Dushyant. Dushyant, now I'm moving to our women on screen. Komal, I'll start with you. Again, the first question to you would be, what was that one moment when you truly realized the power of small?
I think when a client told us, "I'll wait till I become a certain size to have you guys on board. We'll wait it out." So I think that was testimony for us.
Okay, amazing. Now, word associations for you. Ideology is.
A myth.
Okay, curiosity.
Very important. Be curious all your life.
And to be multifaceted.
It's an asset and now a skill.
And influence.
No influence, no work.
On that note, thank you, Komal. Neha, switching to you. The first question, of course, being, what was that one moment when you truly realized the power of small?
So Shreya, I can I answer this in 2 sentences instead of
Yes.
one?
Go
So
ahead. Go ahead.
great. So our first pitch to a big brand, we did it by ourselves, and when we finished, not that they just didn't love it, but they also, their head sort of cornered me and told me, you know what, these are great ideas. We want you to execute, but can we please offer you a little more money because what you've quoted is very less. I think that was the day when I felt it was all in my head because I was very nervous. I thought I don't have a team with me. So yeah, sorry, I think that was few more sentences.
That's okay. I think that was a lovely one anyway. And my questions that I have for you, salt of PR is dash.
Ideas,
Okay, strategy is.
the backbone of every campaign.
Mindsets are.
Mindsets are people who don't want to change.
True. And the last one for you, belief systems are.
Are to break.
Okay, with that, thank you so much. I've had a phenomenal rapid fire. I would score the women 1+ in comparison, although Komal's last answer was longer, but still, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Those insights were truly exciting. I do have audience questions, and I'm going to switch gears to that one. This one is from Vani Krishna, and it's directed to Neha. What would be your top 3 tips for a PR firm that's just starting up?
Um, Thank you, Vani, for the lovely question. Um I think the first and the foremost tip for any individual who's choosing to start up their own firm is to stand their ground no matter what. Because, like the topic we're discussing today, again, this will be told to you multiple times by many people. You have to just tell yourself that's not for you. And you have to be very clear of what you want to do. So the second part, in terms of why is it that you want to do it, the why has to be answered very clearly. Once that is answered, then there is no stopping. Because each project that you will undertake, or even for that matter, each pitch that you will undertake, when you will share that why very clearly, that will make brands believe in your potential. And I think the third advice that I would like to share is that keep going. When you're starting off, there'll be multiple hurdles, obstacles, challenges, especially financial, because at the beginning, until you're funded, you're dependent on your client money for your payouts, etc. Don't look at that as a setback. Your 5 days can be bad, but there's a very good 60, and that is where your focus has to be. So at any given time, there is no stopping. Maybe you want to take a breath and take baby steps, which is fine, but you have to move forward.
Okay, Bani, I hope those insights will really help you. Switching gears to Dushyant. Dushyant, the question comes in from Khushi Rawat, who asks, which sectors of business do not have growth potential and PR firms would be better off not focusing on them? I can repeat the question for you.
Sorry.
Khushi Rawat
So,
from Khushi. So yeah, I'll just repeat the question. Khushi Rawat asks, which sectors of business do not have growth potential, and PR firms would be better off not focusing on them?
uh, thank you, Kushi, for the wonderful question. We need to understand every sector from its own. The last 3 or 5 years of growth rate which they have been witnessing. India is a booming economy, irrespective of the last 1.5 years of pandemic. Country hasn't seen a lot of downtrend. If you look at any of the sectors currently, they all are growing at a good rate. PR as a PR company, they all are growth catalyst, right? So I won't say that a particular sector is not the right sector for you. Rather, choose the sector as per your interest, rather than just choosing them for the sake of growth. Growth is absolutely a financial year kind of a thing. It can change. It depends on a lot of policies and things which is being governed by the policymakers and the government. So look at the sector from a your interest perspective rather than just looking from a growth perspective.
Okay, perfect. So I hope that answered your question, Khushi. And again, some great insights. Rashmi Sharma asks Komal, in your firm, what are the tactics you use to drive innovation and innovative work inside the organization?
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Rashmi, for that, you'd have to join my firm. That's the only way to know it. But on the other side, I think innovation is fueled by the kind of clients and briefs and objectives that we look at, but that's a theoretical part. I think the softer aspects of being able to always break ground, to think that is this really what can make a difference to the work that we're doing? And not only us, will it really help the client? If you have the answer that you're doing something right. Now the mediums can be many. There's really no templatized version of that. That's what Tute stands for, right? It's being intuitive.
Wow, there is no templatized version, and like I said, some great insights coming in. The last question from the audience is by Anjana PV, and it's directed to Rishi. Rishi, Anjana asks, many businesses do not understand how to leverage the power of public relations. How do you build a case with such organizations to really deploy PR support?
And that's a really good question, Anjana. I feel, as a young PR firm, which is working largely with a lot of clients who are actually doing PR for the first time, or they have somehow burnt their hands in PR with some other agencies, and they really are questioning whether there is value in doing PR. I think fundamentally all of us have to be very honest with our clients in terms of limitations of PR. There is so much you can achieve with PR, but at the end of the day, there is a certain limit, and that's actually one of the founding principles at Evoc, that a problem is not always solved by PR. Sometimes you have to look at other tools or communication programs, which would include advertising, which would include uh, even advocacy. I think marketing, influencer marketing, is another important tool. The second way to answer this question and to really emphasize the importance of PR to a client who is, or to a business who is not fully sure of the value that it can bring to them. I think the AMEC way of measuring and evaluating the outcome of PR, and which is very clearly divided into outputs and outcomes, and the business impact. And if you are using that AMEC methodology to measure results for some of your existing clients, and you show them as case studies to a person who is skeptical, I think it becomes far more easier for that person to understand what PR can do. But I would still like to underline the fact that uh, uh, let's not over exaggerate the role or the possibilities with PR. I think there are other tools in the mix that all of us anyways are familiar with and are also offering to our clients, whether it is digital marketing, whether it is influencer marketing, whether it is public affairs, advertising. I think all of those tools have to be brought into the picture. And ultimately, rather than selling PR to the client, I think the best way is to ask the client their problem and sell them the solution.
Right. Okay. On that note, I'm conscious and aware of time, and I think we have overshot a wee bit. But thank you so much to our panelists who've truly spent this conversation sharing so many insights, so many interesting anecdotal evidences of exactly what we're talking about. There is immense power to being small and to not perceiving that you're small, and that's clearly come through in the conversation. So thank you so much, panelists, for having joined us here today and for sharing your insights. We're really grateful, and thank you, and wishing all of you the very best for all your future endeavors. Thank you.